Alright, so today we are, I guess, continuing our array methods talks. So today we're going to focus on another two array methods. Anyone looked at the calendar? What are those array methods called? Map's one of them. The other one?
forEach.
Yeah, so we've got map and forEach, which on the surface might look quite similar, but there are some differences that we need to be aware of. Just in case people don't know, some really good sources for documentation are the Mozilla Developer Network, so MDN. So you can usually just type MDN, JavaScript, and then whatever name of the method you need to search, hit enter, and that should bring you up the documentation for that relevant method. So I like to use MDM a lot. You'll see quite a few links as well to W3 Schools, which is the one that you've got on the training platform, right? They often link to there. Both of these websites have decent documentation and also some examples that you can play around with. So for example, on W3 Schools, you can hit the try it yourself thing. It will give you the code, usually as referencing some DOM elements as well. And then you can run that code and see some answers. So yeah, there's a couple of good sources if you want a bit of further information. Yeah, so that's it really. Let's jump into some code ourselves and see what we can do. The syntax is very similar to our last two array methods. So we were looking at find and filter, right, on Thursday, I think it was, yeah? So all I want to do today is to write a function initially that doubles some numbers, yeah? So we take as our input an array of the numbers 1, 2, and 3, and then I just want to double each of those numbers so we end up with an array of 2, 4, and 6. Yeah, simple, right? But let's just break it down in terms of using map and in using forEach. See what the differences are. Well, first get working solution and then see what the differences are. So syntax-wise, how would I set it up if I want to use the array method map in this case? So I've written the function for you. Who's going to start me off? Anyone?
Map dot.
Map dot was one suggestion. Other people have said. Okay, so our array we've assigned to a variable called numbers, yeah? So we can call the map method, on our array, yeah? Any array will have access to this map method through inheritance. We'll talk about inheritance later on. And then what was the one argument that both find and filter took? Nope, not props. That was when we were looking at React. A callback function, yeah. So essentially, we had some sort of callback function in here. All right. Map is the same as is forEach. Yeah, they both just take one argument, which is a function. Are people happy with the arrow function yet, or do you want me to write it longhand still? Does anyone not want me to write it as an arrow function? Okay, awesome. So we're going to write an arrow function for our callback. Okay, so essentially we've set it up like that. And the same as find and filter, map can take, well, it can take 4, but essentially 3 arguments we need to be aware of. 3 parameters we need to be aware of. Anyone know what these 3 parameters are? One of them is definitely the index, yeah. Another one's the callback. Haven't we already created the callback? One is the value. I'm going to write them just in the order that we've set them for now. One's the value, yeah. So in this case it's a number, Catty, yeah. So value, number mean the same thing in this case. Can't be anything. No, they have predefined roles, these parameters. No, there's also the array, and also we can pass it a this value, but we're not going to worry about that for now. Let me just zoom in slightly, come over. Not bad. Okay, so we've just written them in that order, which was the order we said them in, but they do have to be in a certain order, these three arguments. And in fact, we were only just using one of them when we were using find and filter. What one were we using? The value, right? Each element in the array. So that is the first argument that we need to put. The second argument would be the index, and the third would be the array. We can put some breakpoints in a minute and see how these values change. If you want to write very, very simple map functions, you can just do away with the index and the array, but you will always need the value. That is a required argument, yeah? Cathy suggested a good semantic name for the value in this case. Number, right? Each element in our array down here, 1, 2, and 3, is a number. So that's why we're using number to denote the current element or the current value in the array. Again, like find and filter, it iterates over, it loops over each item in the array. So how many times do we expect map to run in this case? The callback function of map to run in this case? 3, yep, because there's 3 elements in the array. Yeah, good stuff. And how would I double each element in the array then? What could I write as my main function body? So I've got access to this number, this current element.
Oh, number star 2.
Number star 2. Like that, Jack?
Equal to something. Needs to be equal to equal.
Does it have to be equal to something?
Would you return it? Sorry.
Yeah, I think we definitely need a return statement because the way I've written it, right? I've used these curly braces and I've dropped down a line. If instead I use normal parentheses, I wouldn't need that return statement,
Yeah, that's
right? And of course, if I wrote it all on one line as well, which it's perfectly okay to do in this case because it's quite short, I wouldn't need any sort of extra notation. Oh, except I would need to close my function there. How about that? Elegance-wise, is that okay?
it's alright, it's not too long.
Yeah? No elegance penalties? We get there on the platform? Spaces, yeah. So the best practice is to put some spaces, yeah, between most operators, but definitely the multiply operator here. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. What did you say for ours earlier? Do we need a get? Is that what you said? Get what? No? Okay, no worries. Will this work? Yeah? Let's run it. 2, 4, and 6, as intended. Yeah? So that's pretty simple. Yeah, it's just looking at each number and then doubling that said number. So map is applying a function to each element in the array. The function in this case just takes the value and multiplies it by 2. Does this modify the original array? Creates a new array, Jack's saying. How would we test that? Console log what?
Numbers? That's the original array.
Console.log numbers, because that's the original array. Just like that.
I think so.
Quotes? Quotes where? What, round numbers? No, because that would turn it from a variable into a string, and we want to access the variable numbers, which contains my array.
How about number.numbers?
How about number.numbers? Don't think so. No. Numbers only available inside the map function.
The symbol, no?
The array symbol, what, round numbers like that?
No, but after
No?
numbers.
Like that?
Yeah, together, I don't know.
Do we need that, guys?
No.
No, that accesses an index inside of an array. Yeah, I just want to return the numbers array. But still, will this console.log actually output anything? No? Why not? Because it's after the return statement. Yeah. Yeah, anything after the return is not going to run.
Yeah.
So if you want, we can assign the result of our map function into a variable, and then we could log it, or even just return it from the function. So the original question was, has numbers changed? Has numbers been modified in any way? Or has map created a brand new array and then put the transformed elements inside of that? So this should tell us now, right? If numbers has changed, then we can clearly see that map is a modifying function. Let's check. So we can clearly see down the bottom, sorry, I should have probably cleared that first. Let's clear it and run it again. That our only option here is 1, 2, and 3, and that's returning numbers. So numbers has not changed. But of course, if we did result, which is the result of calling map, then that is the new array that map has created. Make sense? Sort of?
Yeah, that's
Any leading questions that could help us understand it a bit more from those who were not quite sure?
So what did you say map does again?
Yep, so map returns a brand new array, the same length as the original array, and for each element in that array it has applied some sort of function. Yeah, in this case we had a doubling function, but it doesn't have to be that. Yeah, it was just an example to work with numbers. So it creates a brand new array of the same length that is transformed the old values in some way into new values. What was that textbook definition for us? He's reading it off the screen. What did you say?
Return an array with the square root of all values in the original array.
Oh, so that was a different example, a square root one. Yeah? So if we had square numbers in here, or even not square numbers, right? Let's leave some not square numbers in there. But if we had 1, 2, 4, I don't know, 25. Give me another square number, anyone? No? 400, right? Is that a square number, right? 20 times 20. Or is that 4,000? Let's check. So, Faraj suggested that we want to return the square root of our numbers inside of a new array. Any ideas how we would do that? I think Kieran's got something. He said
SQRT, isn't it?
he said there's a .sqrt method. So do I call that on number? What do I do? And not times it by 2 either. On number? Is it a method or a function? This square root thing? Or is it a property?
Yeah, capital.
It's a method, so we need to invoke it, do we? Yeah? Something like that?
No, I was thinking get rid of the brackets, just leave one.
So is it using number or something else? Kieran's saying something else, I think. But that's right.
Capital M math dot sqrt
Okay.
brackets number.
Yeah, cool. Look, number dot square root is not a function. So in other words, the square root method is not inherited by numbers. Yeah, it belongs to what object, Kieran? Math. Yeah, the built-in math object in JavaScript. So it's math dot square root, and then we pass the number in, I assume, to the method. Yeah, like that. Math dot square root, pass in the number.
I'm still putting the number in the bracket.
Yeah, otherwise, what's it going to square root?
That's the argument.
Yeah, that's the parameter of the square root function there. Let's try that. See what happens. Let's clear that. Now we get square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 2, you can see now, is 1.41. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 5. Square root of 4,000 is apparently 63, blah, 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 blah. So give me another square number. 100? 100's a good one, right? So we expect the square root to be, yeah, and we can clearly see there that we've got 10. Yeah, so that's how we would get the square root of an array of numbers. Yeah, transform each number into its square root by using the map function. Yeah. There's one other pretty useful use of map. In fact, we might be able to do it in this case, I'm not sure. But it's a shorthand. It enables us to omit the value and just say what we want to transform it into. And that works with some built-in methods. I'm going to try it with the square root. Essentially, it lets us write a shorthand syntax like this. Oh, I don't think it will because we haven't passed any arguments. I don't think it will like that. But you see what I'm trying to do? We're trying to just say, for each element here, apply math.square root to it. Yeah, without using our sort of arrow function syntax. This is a shorthand. I don't think it will work in this case, but let's try. No. Yeah, not a number is not a function. But what we could do, say we had strings and we wanted to convert them all to numbers. Whoops. How do I convert a string to a number in JavaScript? What was that, Jack?
I know two strings, so is it two numbers?
Okay, so we got one suggestion. We've got.
I don't know, that's right.
You're saying if we had a string, we could call string dot to number, something like that.
Yeah.
That's your suggestion, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's right.
Invalid or.
There's definitely capital N in the number.
Still with a what?
Yeah, just not number. No. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if we run that, Jack, there's no toNumber method. Yeah? String dot to number is not a function. Instead, what we have is we put number before and we pass the string into it like that, and that will convert our string to a number. If we run that.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I know. Why are they not following convention?
String is like, you follow it.
And now we can see that we've got our array and they're numbers rather than strings. But this we can definitely write using a shorthand. We can just do that.
Does that number function, does it also work on, it's a string of arrays, so it obviously works on arrays as well.
No, it's not working on the array
It's only working on the string.
because inside of map we're iterating over each element.
Oh, okay.
And what's each element?
String.
A string. Yeah.
Okay.
So if I run that, you got a question 7 in a second. It also works. Yeah.
What would happen in this case if you omit the dot map?
What happens in this case if we get rid of dot map like that? Yeah, what are you trying to do, Seb? Or are you just curious?
No, it's that I don't understand the function of the map.
Oh, you're using that method.
So what this is doing is we've got an array
Alright.
and then we put some normal brackets after it as if we're trying to invoke an array, which doesn't make sense. And then you're trying to pass in another method into that array. So it's absolute nonsense really, this one. Yeah, numbers is not a function. Yeah, we tried to invoke numbers, whereas numbers is an array. So map, all map's doing is taking each element in the array and transforming it in some way. Yeah, how it transforms it depends on whatever we put in here as the callback function. So we tried that earlier, didn't we? Ah, it does work. I just wrote it wrong. Yeah, so we can also write that shorthand invoking the math.square root method. But
What did you write on?
I put the parentheses on it because it was a method, but we actually need to leave those parentheses off in the shorthand syntax and then it will work. Yeah, so nice little shorthand syntax to be aware of, but make sure you understand first that that is what it's doing. Yeah, it takes each element in the array and then applies a function to it or applies some code to it. In this case it takes each string and turns it into a number. Do you remember those 2 extra arguments we had earlier? Those 2 extra parameters? Index and array. Okay. I'm going to put them back in. And we're going to add a breakpoint. So I'm going to have to drop it down onto multiple lines. If I drop it down onto a multiple line with a curly brace, what do I need? Return, exactly. Yeah. Oops. And how about up here? Do I need anything else? Close what? So just there? Oh, that's gone wrong though. Oops. So we do need to enclose them, don't we, Kieran? Yeah? But we need to make sure that we open and close. Yeah, because that first bracket belongs to the map, which closes down here on line 5. Alright, so I'm now going to put a breakpoint on, I'm going to save it and put a breakpoint on line 4. And hopefully that will give us the opportunity to see exactly how our element, I'll call it just element for now, our element, our index and our array are all changing as we iterate through map. Yeah? So expectations then, on the first run through, what do we expect element, index and array to equal? What do we expect these things to be?
Index will be 0, 1, 2.
Just on the first iteration, Jack, so the very first time we call that callback function, we expect index to be, you said it, but...
Sorry, 0.
0, yeah. Indexes start at 0. What's the first element?
1.
1, as a what? Number? String?
As a string.
As a string, good stuff. And then the array, do you know what the array would be? So I've heard, I think, 0 or empty array, I assume. I've heard 1, did I hear from someone? What's the array going to be? The numbers array. So you think it's just going to be a copy of that? Yeah, is that your answer, Kelly? Yeah. Have no clue, but that's it's an educated guess, right?
It starts from 0, so it would be 0, right?
What, an array of 0, an empty array, or? Yes, we've got a few other options there. People might think. Let's save it and run it and see what happens. Oh, I must have made a mistake somewhere. Reference error, string is not defined because I changed the name of it, didn't I? I've called it what now? So str is not defined. What have I changed the name to? What are we calling number on? Someone said it, I think. Element, right? Yeah, each element in the array. Yeah, so I've changed the name to make it more general in this case, just because we're learning. So now if I run that, hopefully it will work. And yeah, our breakpoint has stopped. Where's the bit I'm looking for? Let me zoom out again, guys, 1 second. Yeah, good stuff. So, on our first loop of our callback function that belongs to map, our element is 1, which is what we said. Our index is 0, again what Jack said, excuse me, and our array is 1, 2, 4, 25, 100, which is a copy or a reference to our original numbers array. Yeah, and we will see situations where this is very useful. Yeah, because we can reference or compare a certain element in the array to our current one. Let's say we wanted to return I don't know, you played that game higher or lower? Yeah? Remember that? So you could do essentially a little higher or lower game to test whether the current element was higher or lower than the next. Let's have a go at writing that. Oh, by the way, yeah, just to move through. So on the next iteration, elements 2, index is 1, array stays the same. Yeah, so the array is always just a reference to that original array that you called the map on. So array doesn't change throughout the loop, only the element and the index do. Yeah, that was the point I was trying to make. Thanks for pointing it out. Amen. Good stuff. So let's see if we can compare the current element to the next element in the array. Any ideas how we would do that? Let me skip all these and just get through it. And try and take that out. There we go, I think we finally got through it. And of course, even though I haven't actually done anything inside my function, we still get an array back. Oh, you can't see. One sec, let me zoom down. we still get an array back with 5 elements, because that's how map works. It always returns an array of the same length as the original array. So this time I just get 5 undefineds, yeah, because I didn't actually do anything inside that function. I just returned nothing. But note that I've still got an array back of 5 elements, because the original array had 5 elements in it. Alright, let's do higher and lower. So we want to compare what? We're trying to compare the element, yeah, the current number with
With the array.
so let's say if it's greater than, yeah, some part of the array, yeah, the next number. How would I reference the next number in the loop? Say again? Yeah, so I definitely need some square brackets. What goes in the square brackets?
Index number.
Just the index? The actual number. What number? Element?
Index
Again?
number, so you do, like whether you're trying to see it's higher than you do for 1, it would be 0, 2, it would be 1.
Yeah, so we're comparing our current element with the next element in the array, which is going to be array index plus 1. Because array references the original. Your index is currently set to whatever the current element is. So if we want the next element, let's just add 1 to the index. Yeah, makes sense? Absolutely. We're going to run into a little issue just for the last index, right? Because it's going to try and compare itself to greater than the next index, which there isn't one. So hopefully it will still maybe just return higher once we write some logic, but we'll come to that. And there's lots of ways around this, but you probably won't get onto that until intermediate training, intermediate JavaScript, and certainly you'll use this structure quite a lot in Expert, yeah? Referencing certain elements in the array, using comparisons. So let's say if it is greater, I just want to return the string greater, and if it's less, I want to return the string lower. Or higher or lower, isn't it? So let's go higher and lower. So they're the two strings that I want to return. If it's greater, return higher. If it's less, return lower. How would I do that? What sort of logic do I need? Ternary operator would be really, really nice for this, wouldn't it? I agree. I'm just going to mix up the numbers slightly here so that we... that'll do, right? Where would the ternary go, Kelly? Where the last... Yeah, so the whole thing's going to become a ternary, but where do you want me to put my question mark? Right before the semicolon, yep. So in other words, that first bit is my test, right? If the element is greater than the next element, do what? Return the string saying higher, yeah, something like that. Otherwise, return low, yeah, something like that. I think that should work. So now, for each element in the array, we're going to do some sort of test, apply some sort of condition. If we get true, if the element is greater than the next one in the array, that should, in our new array, put the string higher. If it's not, it should put the string lower. Want to see it to make it make a bit more sense? Yeah? Let's run it. Lower, lower, higher, higher, lower. That's what we got. So let's check. Is 1 higher or lower than 25?
Lower.
Lower. What do we get? Lower. Cool. Is 25 lower or higher than 4? What do we get? Ooh. Why do we get that?
Why?
does our logic not work? Have we written it wrong here, or is it a different reason?
Oh, because it's counting 2.
Yeah. Nice spot. So these are strings, right? And the way it organizes strings is that 25 with the 2 will technically be less than the 4.
Is it sorted alphabetically? Is that?
Uh,
Individual actual numbers instead of
I think it's just,
So in order to get this right, we have to convert the string into numbers.
yes, so let's convert it back into a number. How did we do that?
get rid of the quotes.
No, we're not going to change the input data at all. Let's say we've actually got strings as our input. How do we change a string into a number?
Just like we showed us.
Just like we did earlier, yeah, which was
Let's try to do.
number.
Number, brackets, element.
Yeah.
Put the element inside. That's it.
Yeah, and we could do the same for the next number as well, right?
Okay, yeah, let's run it.
Yeah, now if we run it. Where's my run gone? I lost it, there it is. Now we get lower, higher, higher, lower, lower. Let's have a look. Lower we said, higher yes. Is 4 higher than 2? Yep. Is 2 higher or lower than 100? It's lower. Cool. So the only one that's being a bit weird is it's saying 100 is actually lower
Then 0.
than
no
undefined. Yeah, there's no number after it, so it's just struggling a little bit there, but I guess it's returning some sort of falsy result, and that's why we're getting lower. Yeah? We're not going to deal with that now, but there are numerous ways to deal with making sure we're at the last index or the first index or something like that. Yeah?
Okay.
But it would make our...
Yeah, one more time. You see, when you put the return, when you change the element from string to number,
Yep.
straight away you knew where to put the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just go through the logic behind it, please? Just explanation.
Yeah, so I just looked at what things we wanted to actually turn into a number, and that was the element itself and the next element.
Both.
So therefore, the way the number method works is we must wrap anything we want to convert into a number inside that number method. Yeah?
So you need to identify what element you want to convert.
Yep.
And then wrap it around the number.
Yep, and then put it as a parameter into number. You could also do a little trick by just putting a plus in front of it like that. Would also work. But it's going a bit beyond the scope of this talk, but that will also work.
We're expert, right?
Yeah.
It's good to know, yes.
We could have also used two maps. Right? If we wanted to leave our logic alone there, we might have first wanted to map everything into a number.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do as a
Ah, okay, yeah, nice. And then call another map to actually apply our transform it into higher or lower. So we've separated out our logic there rather than doing it all inside of one function.
So this is normal as a beginner. If you do that, I'm not going to.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. To break it down step by step when you're learning, I think this way would be quite nice. Any more questions on map before we talk about forEach? Because we haven't even talked about that yet. I need to move on. That's what I'm going to do now. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I've taken up a lot of time with map. Nope, nothing else? Okay. So let's write the same function. I know it's a bit boring doing the same function all the time, but it's good for comparison in this case. Let's write the same function using a forEach method. Okay, so here's one I partially prepared earlier. Oh, there's hints down there. Don't want to see those. Okay, so using my double function, we could, if you like, just follow the same syntax. Yeah, and see what happens. So what did I call map on? I called it on my array, which in this case was called numbers. Yep. So I'm going to do the same thing again. In fact, I'm going to return it straight away as well. So this time we're going to use forEach to see the differences, but you're quite right, I did use map a second ago. And then again, it took a callback function, and so does forEach, yeah? So we need some sort of function in here. Can anyone remember what we had previously?
Element.
No, number.
Yeah, element or number. Either's absolutely fine. I'm not even going to put the array on the index for now, because I'm just doubling it, yeah?
And we doubled the number times 2.
And we did number space star 2, yeah, to get the nice elegant syntax. And to even improve the elegance further, yep, we can definitely add that semicolon. So that's essentially what we had for map. Yeah, that was the one-liner that if I copy this across, it's going to take if I copy this across and change it for map, run the code, and that worked. All right, we got 246. So all we've done so far is attempt to replicate that using forEach. If I run this code now, what will it return? Any ideas? Will it still return an array of 2, 4, and 6, or will it be slightly different? It won't return an array, says Jack. What will it return, Jack? Any ideas? Nothing returned, says Kieran. The word nothing, or what do you mean by nothing?
Undefined?
Undefined, says Jack and Kieran, perhaps. Yeah. Any other guesses? So why will it return undefined? What's wrong with the code? Usually it returns undefined when we've done something wrong. What's wrong?
I'm just guessing it.
You're just guessing? Yeah.
I just feel like you may need a variable at some point.
Need a variable. We got a variable though, right? We got nums our variable, or numbers as our variable. Hold the calculation. Okay, so if instead I said let doubled equals num times 2, and then return doubled, is that better?
That's just a longer version.
It's just a longer version, right? If I sort out my brackets and stuff, but I'm not going to bother now. Yeah, I don't.
Map is mapping that to your array, isn't it? forEach isn't doing that. I can't remember. I feel like it might be returning strings instead.
Yeah, so I think Jack's getting pretty close. No, seriously. Yeah.
I know your map doesn't that.
I'm going to try to modify the numbers array. No?
So I've just run it, and we did return undefined. Well, what about if I just try and return something? Yeah. What have I done wrong now? I don't need a return because it's on the same line. Yeah, if I just try and return something from this, hopefully I will get the string something. Ooh, weird. Still undefined. Just doesn't seem to be returning anything.
Is there no need for the number?
No. It's nothing wrong with what we've written. forEach is like that. It never returns. It doesn't have a return value, or its return value is always undefined. You might think, well, what's the point of that then?
So it's just iterating.
Yeah, it's iterating over. It's performing this function for each element in the array. But it's not returning anything.
So we have to write. So we have to write something to make it return. So that's how it is.
Yeah, so in other words, we don't want to have return the result of a forEach method. We want to return something else. So Kieran's like, let's get a variable in there somewhere. Just return something. Return a variable.
For each isn't stored in the total memory, and you have to capture it as a variable to return it.
I was in the return number.
So what do you want to do though, Kieran? Do you just want to
I would say that.
let result equal the result of it, or
No.
no? It's that would be the same situation, right?
Creating a like let total equals 0.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to create a new array myself, right? Let result equals an empty array. Yeah. And then I eventually want to return result. So if I run that now, I should return an empty array. Yeah, just to check that I've set up my code correctly. I now return an empty array because I'm returning result, which I've set up here to an empty array. So at the moment, forEach isn't doing anything for me. How would I make it? Yes, we've got to use some other methods. We've got to use some modifying methods on my result array. So we could do result dot push number times 2, something like that. Then each time for each loops over an element in my array, it should push the element multiplied by 2 into this empty array that I've initialized on line 3. And then we return it. Let's give it a go. It works, right? We get 2, 4, and 6. So
Can you use object keys with that as well?
object keys. Let me just say a couple of things first, Faraj, and then I'll come back to that point. Yeah. So that's the main difference with forEach, is that forEach doesn't actually return anything. It always returns undefined. So just be aware of that if you're trying to use it in some sort of chain. Yeah, I don't know, maybe you've used some map function. Alright, you've turned it all into numbers, great, oh yeah, I'm really happy with that. And then you've called a forEach method and you're expecting just to return something from the whole thing. Because forEach returns undefined, you can never chain a forEach function. Yeah, so never chain something on afterwards. Oh, let's now sort my numbers into however I want to sort them. Yeah, highest to lowest or whatever. You cannot chain forEach because it always returns undefined, and therefore undefined has no methods attached to it. Yeah, so you cannot change forEach. It always returns undefined. Hopefully I've said it enough times. And so you can...
What's the benefit of using it?
What's the benefit of using it? Yeah, not much, to be honest, unless you explicitly don't want a function to return anything. Yeah, and that happens. That happens quite a lot, right? Let's think about databases. Yeah, things that we want to modify in our database. We don't care. It gives us the value back, or it tells us what all of those 1,000 new values are that we've changed. We just care that it's changed it and it hasn't produced any errors. Yeah, that's what we care about. So you can absolutely use forEach, but in modern JavaScript we tend to use map a lot more. And if I can quickly pull up an article, then you will see that the performance of map also tends to be better than forEach. So it runs quicker, it can perform more operations per second. Let's see if I can find that briefly. Map is quicker, yeah. We're talking about performance. We'll try and talk about performance a bit during the course, and we might even do an explicit workshop on it, a separate workshop on it. But it's not that one. I thought I had an article saved. Nope. There's a nice chart somewhere, but benchmark. No. Yeah, okay, something like that. Alright. See if I can get it all on one screen. Okay. Hopefully we can just about read that. So, of course, take these tests with a pinch of salt, right? If you reproduce them, you might not get exactly the same results. Maybe in certain situations, forEach would be quicker. Yeah, there's lots of variables going into these situations, but in general, I think you will find that forEach performs slower, and in this case, we can see the actual figures. So this managed to do 1,072,000 blah 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 operations per second, whereas map managed to do 3,650,000 operations per second. So that meant forEach was 71% slower in this instance. And you can see, oh, look what they've done. They've actually done the little function that we did there, a doubling function, yeah? They used it in a slightly different way. They didn't initialize an empty array. What they did is use the index, the array and index variables to reassign the value of the array to the number 2. Yeah, to double the number, sorry. Yeah, but very, very similar to what we did, and hopefully you can see there that the performance is considerably different. Yeah, map is considerably faster than forEach. So the modern methods tend to have advantages in 2 ways, well, mainly 2 ways. Either they're of better performance, or they are clearer, I guess. They are better semantically, yeah? They make more sense. Not quite sure in this case whether map makes more sense than forEach. I think forEach is probably more readable, right? We understand that for each element in the array, we are performing a function. Map has, I guess, more of a mathematical meaning. You're mapping one number into a different result. You're transforming it in some way. But clearly, performance-wise, map is better in this case than the older method forEach. Any other questions on forEach for now? Seb, you're quiet today. Have I blown your mind again? Faraj had a question. He said something about object.keys. How would you use object.keys in this sense?
Can you use it in conjunction in terms of
That's a JS, that's not that. Keys do that.
can you use object keys?
The problem I have with using object.keys in this case is we have no object. What are we using object.keys on? If we had an object, and let's write out an object, and that object has our same numbers. Something like that. We've now got an object as our argument. What are the keys in this object? What are the names of the keys in this object? Thank you, yeah. The keys are first, second, and third. The values are 1, 2, and 3. You want to use what, Faraj? Was it keys or values? Okay, if I use object.keys on numbers, or I'll now call it numbers object just to be clear. So if I did object.keys on my numbers object, what's going to be the value of keys? What value is stored in the keys variable? Anyone? first, second, third as what? As a string? As an array. Yep. So keys is going to be an array of first, second, and third. So I probably don't want keys the way I've written my object. I don't want to use keys at all. 10 numbers dot. Let's just do. No table tennis yet. Oh, what have I done? No, oh, it's numbers object now, but yeah, so spoiling now, but never mind. Okay, yeah. So if we return keys, hopefully you can now see that we have an array with first, second, and third in it. So that's what object.keys is doing. It's taking an object, it's iterating over that object and putting the keys inside of an array. If we wanted 1, 2, and 3 again, how would I do that? In an array, just as we had before, but we're extracting that information from the object. Values, yeah, object.values, yeah. So up here, I've done let values equals object.values from the number object, and then I can do the same as before. I can yeah, let's do it the way they did on the performance test, just to do it slightly differently. So for each value, if I have a reference to the index, I can say values index equals num times 2, something like that. Oh, what am I returning now? Keys. So if I now return values, hopefully I'm going to end up with my transformed values, and I do, yeah? So that's how you could have made it a bit more complicated, I guess, forEach, yeah, by having your data inside an object instead of easily accessible inside of an array. But it was pretty easy, right, to adapt that data. In JavaScript, it's pretty easy to manipulate our data types. All we really needed was that one extra line, let values equals object.values, to get our array of 1, 2, and 3, and then we proceed the same way as before. Yeah. No worries. Anything else, or should we leave it there? Because I've gone on ridiculously long again. But if there's anything that's not clear, please ask.
I'll watch the videos again.
Yep, sure, watch the videos again. The best way to learn, of course, is to play around with these snippets yourself. I can send over these snippets, or you can just get your own from MDM or W3 Schools, or JavaScript.info is a really good one as well, right? I gave that link to quite a few of you to begin with. Yeah, so you can just search for array.map, and that will give you a couple of more examples there. And I think that might be where forEach got his square root one. I'm not sure. All right. Any questions, Sanjay, if you're still there? Don't think he's there.
Was he there from the beginning?
He was there from the beginning, but he's gone for a coffee break, I think. All right, I'll stop it there then, guys. Thank you very much.